back, relax, and maybe get yourself a snack. Me and you gonna have a little chat about books. Hey guys, I'm here today to review two books, both fantasy, that I recently read and that were fairly recent releases, so let's get started. The books I'm going to be talking about are these two: Book 5 in the Demon Cycle by Peter V. Brett, and Book 1 in the Book of Dust series, which is called La Belle Sauvage and is by Philip Pullman. So I'm going to start off with this one. This book is a kind of prequel, or it's the start of a prequel series to the His Dark Materials series by Philip Pullman, which is one of my all-time favourite series. It's so good. I have done a full review of the series, so I'll link that below, because I recently reread them about a year or so ago. This is set when one of the main characters from that series, called Lyra, is a baby, so instead of following her, although the story largely revolves around her, we're actually following a young boy called Malcolm, who works in a pub which his family own. He's quite a fairly normal child, to be honest, but he does live in the world that Lyra grew up in, so there are demons as part of this world. Demons are basically like spirit animals, kind of. They represent your spirit and your personality and yourself in animal form, and they are basically like a companion and a part of people in this world. When the demons are young, or when the people and their demons are young, they are able to change between different animals, but when people grow up and they become adults, their demons stay in one fixed shape that kind of represents them. And it's a really interesting concept. I love it, and it was really great to have demons back as part of this world again. Malcolm is a really fun child to read about. He's quite similar to Lyra in that he actually is very inquisitive, he's quite intelligent, and he's very curious. He loves learning things, he loves investigating things, finding things out, and just being a big part of other people's stories. He's really into listening to people's conversations in the pub where he works, being part of a good friendship group. He's got a lot going on in his life, and he actually has a little canoe which is called La Belle Sauvage, which he is often rowing up and down the river to kind of go on mini adventures on his own and have fun. He's quite an independent child, he's happy to sort of run around and roam on his own, and so he does end up getting into mischief. And this story actually kind of goes back to quite a few of the characters from His Dark Materials. So we see Lord Asriel, and we see Mrs. Coulter, and we see some of the other characters that we recognise from the His Dark Materials books as they are in their younger forms, so we find out a bit about them and their lives and what they're up to. But in terms of Malcolm's story, when the book opens, he's actually invited to a table to serve three men who are looking out for a young baby who they believe has been taken in by the local nunnery. So Malcolm is quite familiar with the nunnery, he knows a lot of the people there, and so these three men who are quite mysterious, they have a back room of the pub all to themselves, and they're asking a lot of questions. They call him in and they ask him about whether or not there is a young infant who has been kept in the nunnery. Now Malcolm doesn't know much about this, he's not really sure, and he can't really help them, but it turns out later on that there is indeed an infant, and he discovers the story of her and who she is and where she's from and what is going on. And after that point it kind of turns into a story about protecting this infant from all of the people who are trying to harm her. Now, I really liked Malcolm as character. I think he's great. We also have another female character who comes in later on, and she's also a lot of fun, but she doesn't come in until a bit later on. We also have the doctor who gets involved, and a couple of other sort of scientific church people who are all involved in various ways, and many of them are studying things like dust, many of them are studying things to do with the world and the science and the kind of advances in technology. It's very much a forward-thinking kind of story, and I really enjoyed that. It's a lot of fun as an adventure story. I think this one definitely feels like it's a setup. It doesn't feel like it is its own book exactly. It feels like it's setting up for the story to come, and we're just getting to know Malcolm in this book. We're kind of finding out about him, we're re-immersing ourselves in the world and meeting all the characters as they were when they were younger, and I really liked that. I just feel like it was kind of like going back to a world you already know and love, but discovering a whole new story there, and I really enjoyed that element of it. I don't think I love it as much as I love the characters and the story and the world of His Dark Materials, because I feel like that one was stronger from the get-go, but it was still a really good book, and I still really had fun reading it, and I actually audiobooked a lot of this, and I thought the narrator was very good for that, so I'd recommend that too. In the end, I ended up giving it a 4 stars, and I definitely enjoyed it and would recommend it, especially if you do like his dark materials, but you don't have to have any prior knowledge of that because this is a prequel, so you can start here. I'd love to hear if you guys are planning on reading this one, what you think of it, or if you've already read it. Do let me know in the comments. But yeah, I gave this 4 stars in the end. Moving on to this book, which is book number 5 in the Demon Cycle series by Peter V. Brett, and it is the final one in the series, which makes me sad and happy all at once because it's always good to finish a series. I don't do that very often, but I'm so sad it's over because I love this world so much. Peter V. Brett is one of those authors who has managed to craft a world that I can just see. When someone describes this world or when I'm reading this book, I can just see it in my mind because it's so clear to me. All the characters feel completely fleshed out to me. They feel genuine, they feel realistic, they just feel great. And this is set in a world where demons come out at night and they attack, and we're following the same host of characters. It has grown from book 1, but it's the same host of characters who are trying their best to reform the world, find out all the magical wards that are going to protect people, and basically do damage and hopefully kill off these demons. They do not want to be attacked every night. They want to be able to defend themselves. They want to be able to live and live happily in this world. And demons every night destroying everything is not conducive to happiness. So what I loved about this book in particular is that by this point in the series, we know so much about these characters. We have followed them from the beginning. We've been through the hard times, the good times, everything. And so many of them have come such a long way. Many of these characters have been through horrible things, seen tragedies, seen losses, seen demons scare them every night. What I love is that they have come out the other side. The way that these characters have learned from their mistakes and the way that they have developed in the world and become better as people, become better at defending themselves, advanced in technology, advanced in terms of peace, cooperation, coexistence, tolerance. There's so many things that this book and this series does so incredibly well, and I really feel like it's a seriously strong series ender. I really loved it. This book in particular has some fabulous female characters. This series as a whole gets accused of not having great female characters a lot of the time because sometimes they are abused in nasty ways in the earlier books. What I will say in response to that is yes, that's true, but what happens to them in the previous books makes them into much stronger, more determined people in the later books, and they've overcome so much horror and tragedy by this point that they are fantastic characters. They're so well done. The men as well, but the women in particular are the ones who usually get the criticism thrown at them, so I thought I would just address that. I love the characters in this world so much, but it's not just the characters, it's also the magic, because these demons sound literally terrifying. And the point where we're at, we have a couple of characters who are actually adventuring to the core, which is where the demons come from, and my goodness, it is terrifying to think of these horrors of demons just spewing out of the earth and doing terrible, unspeakable things. Like, they are pretty terrifying things, and I feel like there is a genuine level of fear when you're reading the book, and there's genuine high stakes when you're reading, because it just feels like they're on a real adventure. It feels like they're actually going to try their damnedest to actually make a difference and to change the world and to make things better, and I love that about this. It just feels so good. Like, it's so good. I obviously don't want to give too much of this away because I don't want to spoil it if you've never read the series, but I can't say an awful lot more without doing that, so I'm just going to say it was one of the best series enders I've read in a long time, and I loved it, and I absolutely just want more from this world. And I think Peter V. Brett is going to do more from this world because he's mentioned a few times that he'd like to just keep writing in the world even though this story itself is done. I hope that he does it really well because I love it so much, and I'm really dedicated to reading these books, so I know that I will pick up whatever he brings out next. But yeah, this series, it's one of my favourites, and I would thoroughly recommend it. I gave this a 5 stars. I think that's probably obvious, but I did. I loved it, and yeah, I would love to know in the comments what you guys thought of it. If you have read it, I loved it. It was just what I wanted it to be and more. So that is everything for this video. Let me know if you've read either of these books down below. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye guys!
Thank you for watching my video today. Go pick up a book, then come back and chat with me again.